Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, my name is Shannon Dougherty, and I am a pain recovery coach. I also had chronic pain myself for about 17 years. And amongst those things that I dealt with were migraines, and that's what this is specifically geared towards. Although the things we do talk about today will also be very applicable to any sort of chronic pain or other chronic symptom like we work with at Lynn. And so Lynn Health is an online program that helps people recover from primary pain using a brain first approach, using all the latest neuroscience and pain science that's available. And at Lynn, you would be paired with a coach, and that coach would be someone like myself who's been through extensive pain training for helping people recover from chronic pain. And you also go through a program of 12 different core care kits, and that is tailored specifically towards you and what you're dealing with. And so today we're tailoring specifically towards chronic migraines or head pain, and we're going to be talking about a concept called imaginal exposure. And imaginal exposure is a wonderful tool to use when something that you're dealing with is perhaps too scary or too tricky to deal with in real life. And so that's when we use the imagination or visualization in order to help calm the nervous system or bring that nervous system into balance in order to decrease pain. And so what I really love to do with my members that I work with is use the power of the mind, use the power of the brain and the imagination to make what they're dealing with less dangerous, less scary, because as the latest pain science tells us, the less we fear the pain, the less the pain will stick around. And it's very difficult to do that when you've been told all different scary types of diagnoses and different things. We really lean heavily into pain education as well. And so what we'll do to start this practice, I'll give you a little bit of background on what we do, like how this is in like the beginning stages, and then we'll go into the practice. And then we're going to leave 5 minutes at the end for questions. And so those can be shared in the chat. My team is there and ready and available. They'll be able to answer, but you can go ahead and hold those questions until the end. Unless something comes up, you're afraid you're going to miss it. But hopefully this practice will be sort of something that you can do by closing down your eyes, doing something more internal, and will leave you feeling a little bit better. And so if you can keep all of your attention and focus on this rather than typing in the chat, it's be helpful. And so when we use imaginal exposure, like I said, it's kind of the first line, the first thing to do, especially when something is big and scary. So head pain is oftentimes big and scary and is something that is pretty difficult to deal with, as is all chronic pain. But there's so many fear thoughts around migraines and head pain, and I know I had them myself and they were horrible. I had them over half the days of the month. It was really awful, so I get where you're coming from. And even if you have a migraine right now, this practice is going to be supportive. So it's something you can keep in your back pocket to do when it happens again, but please go ahead and practice. If you have a migraine or not, if anything doesn't feel good, you can pause and just listen, but I think this will feel hopefully very nice for you. So graded exposure is something that we do in order to get more comfortable at doing something we feared in the past. And with migraine specifically, there's oftentimes specific triggers that our brain has learned are dangerous. And so those can be light, smell, sound, foods, activities, even like particular items of clothing or specific movements, right? And so all of those are actually not dangerous, but the brain has learned to interpret them as dangerous. And there is a concept also called predictive coding, where your brain predicts what's going to happen because it's trying to keep you safe. So it's trying to make connections in order to prevent you from having pain. And so then it gets a little cross-wired and decides that something that is not dangerous actually is. For instance, there's something like movement can be very difficult, like high intensity interval training, that hit that's so popular for so many people. My brain had learned was very dangerous. And when I did it, I got a huge migraine with aura and all of those things, and it was very scary. But by doing graded exposure, I was able to get back and able to do that now. It's not something I enjoy all the time, but I can do it, which is exciting. And so one of the first things you can do in that graded exposure of making a list of things to try as you get to that part is imagining it, imaginal exposure. And then maybe it would be getting dressed in workout gear and pretending to do it, or doing it but not jumping so much. There's different levels that you can get to the full activity, but we want to start small. And even though this is in your mind, it's super powerful. There's been studies shown that people who practice the piano in their mind actually make new neural pathways and are actually improving at piano. Not quite as much as if they're actually playing and practicing every day, but they are still improving more so than people who don't practice or don't imagine it at all. So this is why it's so powerful to use your mind and your visual system and your imagination. And so what we want to do as well is do things that bring things into this practice that make us feel good, that make us feel strong. So if you can imagine, in Harry Potter, I know it's a little nerdy, but just roll with it for a moment. There's the boggart that comes out of the closet, and it's this big spider that Ron sees. And he's so scared of spiders and terrified, but he brings in and he like magics it away by putting roller skates on it because it makes you laugh. So having something that can make you laugh, something that can make you feel strong as we do this guided practice can be very helpful as well. Again, we're trying to decrease that danger signal, that danger in me or dim, and increase the safety in me or sim. And we do that by making ourselves feel strong, protected, calm, happy, laughter, all of those sorts of things. And so I want you to just envision something that you would love to be doing. Perhaps it's something you haven't gotten to do for a while. Maybe it's playing tennis. I have a member who's recently gotten back to doing that after years of not being able to. Maybe it's smelling your favorite perfume that you can't wear anymore because perfumes give you a headache. Maybe it's going on a walk on a rainy day because rainy weather bothers you, or just something that you would like to do again. And there's all these different triggers in those things, right? So perhaps exercise is a trigger, or smells, or even light. That's a really big one for a lot of folks with migraines. But again, all of these triggers can be unlearned, and by using imaginal exposure, it can help you get there. So I'm going to use the example of light as I do this practice, but you can imagine something that works for you. So I want you to uncross your legs, put them on the ground, get cozy, and just take a nice deep breath in and out. In and out. And as you place a hand on your heart, just bring yourself back to center a little bit. Breathing in and out. And so I'm going to have you imagine the thing that you want to be doing and the thing that's perhaps stopping you from doing that. So imagine what your life would be like if you could, let's say, turn on the lights whenever you wanted and not worry a bit about it, whether it's the middle of the night or the morning, if that's your thing. How wonderful would it be to not be scared or not be fearful of something like lights? And then what's the trigger? The trigger is, for now, your brain has learned that light is the trigger. And so what we want to do is make ourselves feel cozy and safe. So I also want you to think about something that makes you feel cozy and safe, and even also something that makes you feel strong. And you can think of this like a little talisman or something, like a little, it could be like a little worry stone. I have a lovely member who uses like the imagery of like her husband's jacket as keeping her safe and strong and cozy. So those are some ideas. And just as you gear yourself up, just putting on whatever makes you feel good and strong, kind of empowering yourself to take on this challenge. We're going to imagine actually turning the lights on and doing this. But before we do that, we're going to make sure that we've got everything in place. And so what we can also do is make whatever thing feel as lovely and wonderful as possible. This is all happening in your imagination, so you get to be the artiste, if you will, and decide what you want it to look like. So maybe these lights are like beautiful twinkly lights in a garden at night with a beautiful smell of spring in the air and fresh flowers that are just blooming, just popping up. And there's twinkly lights all around. And this is that nice, soft lighting, nothing too big and scary. And you've got whatever makes you feel cozy and safe. Maybe it's you've got some big tough boots on. Maybe you've got some sunglasses or something if you're really afraid of light. And then I want you to imagine like the light increasing just a little bit. Maybe there's a fire burning in the corner. And its flames are really big, but it's warm and soft and inviting. It's not overwhelming. And it's really beautiful. And this is all happening in your mind. And so if you notice that any pain is coming up or any sensations coming up, just allow yourself to remind yourself that this is totally safe. There's nothing happening. There's nothing wrong. And that what you're going through is completely, totally, utterly safe, and you are strong. And these sensations, if they are popping up, are just because there's some fear still in your system. So remind your brain, remind yourself that there's nothing to be afraid of. And if you've chosen to put sunglasses on because you are afraid of the light in your visualization, just see what would it be like to let those lenses fall away and imagine that light and enjoy and bask in it. And now we're going to do a little bit of graded exposure in this imaginal visualization. So we're going to go from the garden into the house, into a nice cozy cottage. And now this time it's daytime and the sun is shining in. There's no lights on quite yet, but it's very well lit and beautiful and cozy and safe. And then I want you to just turn the light on, that nice overhead light, and see what happens. Does your brain respond with pain? Are you afraid? Are you annoyed because you're like, well, it's just my imagination? By doing it in your imagination, you are gearing yourself up to be prepared to be ready to do it in real life. And so now you've got the lights on, you're completely safe and happy. Maybe you have some nice music playing in the background. Maybe you're going to cook a nice meal. And it's completely and totally safe. And you're free here. You can change and do whatever you need to do with this. And if you're feeling extra strong, you can make the lights even brighter there and remind yourself that you are completely safe and everything's okay. And anytime you need to, you can take a nice breath, you can ground yourself back into the present. It can be helpful to do some swaying sometimes. That's very soothing. Another thing that's nice is just some nice taps or a little hug. And when you're ready, I want you to imagine yourself allowing this light to come through you and make you stronger. Because as we expose ourselves to these triggers bit by bit, little by little, sometimes people are able to just go for it, but I wasn't one of them. And so as you go through this and go little by little, you are getting stronger with each of these experiences. And by practicing in your mind, you are able to do it in real life as well. And you can still use graded exposure and do soft little things to get you there, but you don't have to do too many steps. But it's all about bringing safety, reassurance, and reminding yourself that you are strong and you can do this as you expose yourself to these triggers. And some days you may feel more capable than other days. If your nervous system is already super heightened, maybe not the best time to expose yourself to something you've been wanting to try, but it may be a good time to calm your system. So you can also calm your system using Imaginal exposure as well. So nice soft twinkly lights, that can be your nice safe visualization or your safe Imaginal exposure, whereas the brighter overhead lights can be something that is something you do on like a not so heightened day. But isn't it cool that you're able to go through and do this practice even if you do have a headache, and calming your system down and reminding yourself that you are safe and things are okay? And also, isn't it cool to witness the power of your mind, whether your pain increased or decreased, and see that all pain is created in the brain? Pretty fascinating. And so again, we're just going to imagine this light filling us up and making us even stronger as we practice. And when you're ready, you can come back. And as you come out of this visualization and bring yourself back to the present moment, if you're feeling a little wobbly or anything, you can always practice that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, and 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. But really, it should feel very relaxing and rejuvenating, and also, I hope, super empowering, especially if you picked something that you were afraid to go for before. And this light exposure one was just one example that you can use. I've had people use it for all sorts of things, and it's been super effective and really lovely. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please let us know. And in the meantime, I will go ahead and give some more examples of other imaginal exposures that you can use for yourself. So we talked about light, and another one is sound. And so a lot of times people find different sounds very irritating or jarring or something like that. And so in this imaginal exposure, it may be nice to think of a sound you do enjoy and imagine it being just slightly louder than you would like and seeing how that would feel. Or even like softer if you need to. But just using your imagination to calm your system and allow yourself to experience something that would feel like a lot in real life and feeling it okay there. I've had people do this for like wearing a sports bra that was triggering for trapezoids. I've had people do this for crying. I've had people do this, like I said, for playing tennis or for watching TV at night. I've had people do this where they just push through the migraine all the time, and using your imagination to give yourself a respite, a little rest inside your mind can be very helpful as well. And so I hope that some of these have been helpful ideas. And if you have specific ones that you would like answers to, please let me know. This is a great question, Laura. What causes the brain to choose smells or lights over other things to trigger pain? For example, certain smells trigger me more than others. Okay, great question. So everyone has their own individual experience of what happens with certain smells. And actually, the olfactory system is one of the oldest parts of our brains and goes straight back to one of the oldest parts of the brain. And so our sense of smell can be very triggering for some people. And so I don't know what specific smells you're dealing with, and it doesn't actually matter which specific ones they are or what. But oftentimes, what happens is something may have happened around that, and you've learned to associate, the brain has learned from that instance, and you don't even really need to know what instance it was, but this is just so you know where it happens. The brain associated that smell as something dangerous or bad or irritating. For me, I was super sensitive to chemicals and the smell of chemicals, as well as perfumes. And my brain had learned to send pain when I smelled those things, or to send headaches when I smelled those things. So my sister is like a huge fan of perfume, and gosh, she smells so good. But I used to just feel so bad whenever she would spray it in the car. I would get a headache, I'd feel nauseous, and all that. And yeah, it's a small space, but it's just perfume, right? But I had learned to not like that smell or to react in that way. So smells or lights, it just depends what's happened to you specifically. And in coaching, it's not really important to know what the specific trigger was. Like, I don't know why I was afraid, or my brain was afraid of those smells. But my hunch is that I had probably read somewhere in all of my research to try to feel better that headaches were caused by chemicals. And so when I smelled chemicals, I would then get a headache. So it's almost like you were primed in some way, perhaps. I'm not sure. Other times, I've even heard of somebody developing like allergies to certain foods. Like maybe they got bad news when they were eating that food, and then they felt sick after, and it wasn't even the food that caused it. I had a whole bunch of allergies or sensitivities prior to doing this work. So, but your brain has learned that those triggers or light or whatever. But if you look up migraines, it's like smell, light, all of these things. Like you're primed, you're told that these are bad for you. But really, like when your nervous system is on high alert, a lot of things are overly stimulating. So also noise can be like that for a lot of people. It was for me. Um, Light, all of that. It can your nervous system is already on high alert, and so anything extra feels like too much. I hope that was helpful. Any other questions or anything? All right, so we're going to wrap up. And if you're interested in how you can specifically benefit or have a session like this with a coach, you can sign up for an intake call at the link that Anna has placed in the chat. And I'm so glad that you all were able to attend today. Having a coach and having somebody there with you to help you make sense of what you're going through specifically is so valuable, and it's what I wish that I had when I was going through this on my own. And so if you're interested in working with somebody like me or someone else on our team, please go ahead and schedule that intake call, because know that you don't have to do this alone and that migraines can get better. I don't have migraines anymore, and I never thought that I would be able to say that. So I really hope that this was helpful. Oh, thank you all so much for coming. Thanks for your messages. And, if you need anything, myself and the team are here, and wishing you all the best on your own pain recovery journey, whether that's here or by doing something else. But just know that it can get better, and it will. It may take some time, it may take some finessing and some practice and some repetition, but there is hope. Thanks, everybody.